And that simple answer to the kingdom focus is whatever God lays on that business owner's heart on how it's going to support the kingdom, that's what they do with the business, or some of the business profits is they drive it to that area.
Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast, where business owners learn to scale their profits and cash flow and work less doing it. You built your business to fulfill your dreams and serve your mission. You're the backbone of America, creating the jobs and opportunities that keep our economy moving. And for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. We're Profit First certified. It's the first baby step in a journey we take our clients on, building cash-rich, margin-strong businesses that don't suck the life out of you. Check out the first 13 episodes of the podcast. It's Mike Michalowicz and my review of each chapter of the Profit First book. Around here, we speak cash flow, profit, and practical execution. No accounting jargon, no fluff. Most accountants, they might help you save on taxes, but they'll crush your cash flow and make you look unprofitable. That's not just a poor decision, it's a liability. We help you focus on what you love. And when we partner together, we become a profit center for your business. If we don't deliver a massive ROI on your investment in us, fire us. Want to see how it all works? Watch the video version on YouTube or head over to ProfitComesFirst.com to grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint book and start making profit a habit. You built this business to serve your mission and your freedom. Let's make sure it pays you back big. If you ever want to watch an episode, it's broadcast on YouTube. You get to see us in person. Don't forget to grab a copy of the Profit Blueprint. You can find it for free at ProfitComesFirst.com. As you know, I'm a big fan of EOS because it makes business easy to run. And it lets you know what's going on with short meetings and keeps you in tune. Everyone knows what to do, and you've got the right people in the right seats. We come in and fill the gap with EOS by providing you the financial dashboards to help you understand what's going on financially and to pick the right numbers to measure people on. Today, I've got my good friend Derek Newcomer on. He is a former Marine and personal trainer. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist and a precision nutrition coach. But he's shifted gears quite a while ago. And he's also certified in John Maxwell team leadership training. Currently, he is an EOS Implementer. Entrepreneurial Operating System is what EOS stands for, if you've never heard of that. His strengths is in leadership, teamwork, training, coaching, speaking, and business, making him a perfect fit to help businesses implement EOS. His passion is to work and coach and train kingdom-focused business leaders. Let's meet Derek and learn from him. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Derek Newcomer. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks, Rocky. It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
Most welcome, and I'm excited to learn from you. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. So I got into what I'm doing now. So now I'm a certified EOS implementer. It's about 95% of what I do. And the journey there, like any other entrepreneurial journey, is always interesting. I was in the fitness training business for several years, got my feet wet there as an entrepreneur, but then also as a coach. And I really enjoyed helping clients go from where they were to where they wanted to be. And kind of jumped into, from there, got into executive coaching. I'm a certified John Maxwell team speaker, teacher, and coach. And I loved rubbing elbows with entrepreneurs. I loved rubbing elbows with executives and business leaders and just having conversations on, where they were, where they are, where they love to go. And through that experience, I was then introduced to EOS and traction. And through that coaching experience, but then also, Rocky, making my own business mistakes. So I became, I would like to think so anyways, a really good coach. I was a really good, practitioner. I could do what I did really well. but I learned a lot of really hard business mistakes in that process, trying to build my own practice. And I was introduced to a fellow implementer, Brian White. You probably know Brian White. And he showed me what it looked like, what it would look to become an implementer. And I had read Traction probably a year before, started using some of the tools. And from what I had kind of learned going through my own journey, what God took me through, those lessons learned, the hard ones and the good ones at the same time, I felt, and my wife felt as we kind of prayed through that process of being that EOS implementer combined everything that I love to do. It's business, it's teamwork, it's leadership and motivation, and really getting down to the nitty gritty of, okay, what does it look like to actually make a business and take that team to where their vision would like to go. So that's what I do now. I'm a certified EOS implementer, helping teams get more what they want from their business.
Everybody wants more. They just don't always know how to do it, or they know and they won't do it. So out of curiosity, if you're willing to share, what were some of those lessons learned or struggles you had to deal with?
Awesome. Great question. So I guess some moments of vulnerability, right? Great leaders got to be a little bit vulnerable here. So the first was probably one of the first lessons was delegation. The ability I worked really hard at becoming a good trainer, good fitness trainer, and just using those lessons in that business. It was really hard for me to start letting go of and learning the process of not just letting go, but learning the process of, okay, this is what I've learned works really well. This is what has gotten clients really good results. Now, how can I let go of that, but then also train that other trainer that I now had on my team to help reproduce similar results? And so the delegation steps of, I forget the exact steps, out there, but it's you show them first, or you do it and they watch. So you show them, and then they do it and you watch, and then, they do it on your own and you inspect. And then ultimately you want them to be able to execute that on their own with a measurable in place to make sure, there's accountability. But learning that art of delegation, and I think also that hasn't stopped, Rocky. That art of delegation, still learning that art of delegation. That art of delegation, Rocky, and then also the idea of processes, a systematic way to keep the moving parts of your business flowing in a productive and efficient manner. I'm a visionary, so I hate being stuck in a system or a funnel for too long. It just, for me, it just feels restricting. However, going through the mistakes that I've made and learning how valuable that process is, but when you have the right process, it's not restricting, it's actually freeing. It frees you up to do the right things in the right way and equip the people around you to do the right things in the right way, which ultimately lets me then go do the things that I can thrive in as well. So that delegation and those consistent processes are probably two of the things that I really learned the hard way.
I struggle with people. That's why I like Excel sheets. Trying to get them to do what I want them to is just difficult.
It is. If you're familiar with the key component, the 6 key components, 80% of issues fall on either the people component or the process component. That's where you find most of your issues. So, yeah.
I'm phenomenal with processes.
Okay.
Getting the people to follow the process, that's a whole different world.
It is.
So when clients come to you, what's the biggest issue you see?
So most of my clients are on the smaller end, and I'm not saying necessarily that bigger clients don't have these issues.
First of all, small to you is not small to others.
True. Very true. So my typical client right now ranges from about 2 million in revenue to 15. Average 5 to 7, like if you would kind of average it out. The two main issues that I see are, one, getting the vision out of the owner's head in a clear, communicatable format that can rally everybody around that vision. So what does it actually look like? The owner usually has a vision in their head. Sometimes even the leadership team has elements of that vision in their head, but it's never gotten beyond that. So the people don't know what they're working for. They don't know exactly why they're executing on the job outside of a paycheck, which is a motivator. However, I would argue that it's not the motivator at all. So, and then with that one, Rocky, it's the vision part and then the data management. So knowing your numbers. A lot of my clients don't know their numbers and don't have a great way to track the data so they can run and make businesses off of objective data and not just feelings and emotions on, well, are things going well or are things not going well? Those are the two things that really jump out.
And everybody listening, more than likely, doesn't know the numbers well. That's why they're listening. So you're in good company there. If the paycheck isn't the motivator, what's the motivator?
So great question. So from my perspective, what I believe everyone was created with specific gifts and they have a desire to do something that's outside of themselves, that's work for something that's bigger than themselves. If you ask somebody, they're usually willing to endure more pain when they're doing something for somebody else than they are for themselves. So, meaning if my family's in trouble, if I'm hurt and my family's in trouble, I'm probably going to put my pain and my feelings on the back burner. I'm going to go outside of myself and I'm pushing for something that's bigger than myself. And within the vision of an organization, when you tap into the vision and you make it clear in a communicatable format, and you're able to show that to your organization with passion, with your passion, it's vulnerability. It's, for me as a business leader, it's, well, what if I talk about the vision and people don't like it or people don't want to hop on board? That's okay.
They're the wrong people for the company.
Exactly. That is okay. And you actually want that to some degree because it creates a filter. But the people who are right for that vision, Rocky, their bigger why, go back to Simon Sinek's to start with why. Their bigger why, that internal driving force, they'll connect with that. And people will do more for something that they believe in outside of themselves than they will do for themselves.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's why we always like to hire to culture and hire to vision and making sure that there's that good fit there. And like you said, if the company doesn't tell you what its vision is, you can't hire to vision and people don't know what they're working for. And so you've got to be crystal clear on that. And it has to be more than a sign on the wall that is just words. You actually have to live the words, which I think for a lot of people is difficult. And I know for most business owners, getting stuff out of their head and onto paper or into action is also a very difficult thing to do. And then following through on it. You said you want to do X. Well, do X. Prove it. Show it in the way that you behave.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the biggest, especially as a visionary. Sometimes we don't do the best. So if people listening to this, visionary, integrator, if you're familiar with the terms, visionary, sometimes we don't do the best with accountability. We don't like to be nailed down to something. And that's one thing that you're doing when you're putting your vision out there is you're saying, okay, this is what I believe where we're heading. And it should create some accountability. And that's scary as well.
The struggles we all face. So the second thing you said is not having good data, not tracking data, not having data visibility. And I'm assuming that's more than just the financial data.
Yeah. Most of my clients all of my clients, meet with their accountant quarterly. They do their due diligence as far as just the normal functions, as far as I'm concerned. As an implementer, I don't look at their books. I don't get into their financials. However, I hear, okay, we've met with our accountant. We need to have this done, our budget's done, taxes, whatever that looks like. So
that's process work.
There you go. It's a process work. So most of my clients meet with their accountants quarterly. They do their due diligence. However, Rocky, as you know, that's all in arrears. All that data is in arrears. So you can't do anything about that data. Nothing you can change. And so what we're talking about within measurables or a scorecard or active data is, how do you know? So you have your vision, talked about vision already. How do you know you're actually getting the right stuff done to move forward toward that vision, to fulfill the vision? And in the EOS world, what we teach is we create scorecards for the leadership team, for the departments, and pull measurables around those scorecards. And measurables are simply data points that let the person or the team know that they're getting the right actions done on a daily or weekly basis to get the right results. So revenue is simply a result of however many door knocks or phone calls or sales calls or whatever is created by the scorecard, the sales team scorecard. Profit can be broken down into different types of measurables, whether it's putting together job costing measurables, putting together gross profit, net profit measurables, warranty hours, machine downtime, billable hours versus non-billable hours. So all that data, when we put that into a week of, when we ask the question a lot, when I go through this with clients, what I like to ask is, when you go home after an awesome week and you go home to your wife or husband and you say, hey, we had a great week this week. Okay. What did you do that actually made it a great week? What were the actions that you took that hey, we did the right actions that moved us toward our vision? Those are actionable steps. If they're off track one week, the next week you can look back and say, okay, we're off track. This is going to affect, when we sit down with the accountant at the end of the quarter, these are going to affect those numbers. So it's day-to-day, week-to-week, actionable items.
And I love that. I'm always a little worried because a lot of times people pick numbers that sound great, but have what I call unintended consequences. In the fact that they don't necessarily drive cash flow and they don't drive profit, or they drive a behavior that is not optimal.
Okay.
And so you just have to be careful, I think, when picking numbers. And, looking at it big picture, Wells Fargo, right? They got in trouble because their people were incentivized to open accounts. So they opened accounts. Didn't matter if it was fraudulent, didn't matter if they lied about, they whipped them to do X and they got X, right? And, you mentioned sales. You tell a sales guy to make 16 calls, I guarantee you get 16 calls. But the question is, were they good 16 calls? Or were they just 16 calls because I need to hit 16 calls? So does it then shift the motivation to hitting a number versus doing what's right? Does that make sense? And I don't know if you've noticed that sometimes, or maybe your clients are better than that.
I think we all fall into that. I'm guilty of that. Why? I got 10, I need to make 10 calls this week. Okay, let's knock these off. Boom, boom, boom. But when you take time to reflect and think about, okay, 5 of those were target market good calls. 5 of the other 5 probably really didn't matter, and I probably should have done a little bit more work to dig up target market. But absolutely, it's a question I ask as we put together. So going with your sales scorecard example, we'll want some sort of leading indicator that qualifies that lead as it hits the sales funnel. So then now, okay, is this lead target market? Is it not target market? Because it's a conversation I deal with a lot of construction type of businesses, and there can be a lot of wasted time if you're driving out to see a customer who ends up not being target market. You got, say, an hour or 2 road time. If you don't qualify that lead and you go out and say, oh, this project isn't even really a project we want. So as you get into that data management, Rocky, it's important to be able to filter down, ask the right questions. So those 16 sales calls you are making, either you qualify them through questions or they're already qualified through your marketing process, one or the other. So you create that filter.
And that comes back to the same thing. People say, I need 12 leads this week. And then the question comes, well, were they good leads or were they just leads? And so that's why I'm always extremely careful with picking a number, because some numbers have what I call unintended consequences. And I prefer to stay away from them as much as possible. That's all. Speaking of leadership and dealing with that, you're also a John Maxwell coach. And that comes down to leadership. And we talked about this before we hit record. And actually, I just had a call with one of my new clients today. And most business owners don't understand the business of business. And I haven't even talked about it. I mean, well, I'm not going to put names out there. I'm taking this program and it's being run through a university. And I very quickly realized something. While they understand the technicals of business, these professors don't run a business. And it's kind of like that it was that Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School, where he's in that lecture. I don't know if people, it's an old movie, but they've got the technicals right. But the reality of running a business is so different than that. Like, people say you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. The reality is we're all in the mess of running the business. We're never going to do X, Y, and Z. We'll do A, B, C because you know what? It works and it gets the job done. And it's the 80% that produces the 20% that produces the 80%. And so I think a lot of business owners have self-doubts. And kind of what you talked about was creating vulnerability as a leader and how that kind of helps.
Mm-hmm. So I guess one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and I'm still learning it. I'm 43. Hopefully I'll be in business for a lot. I don't plan on, I think retirement's overrated. And I don't mean, do I want to keep doing exactly what I'm doing now? No, not necessarily. But I believe God created us to work and produce and invest in our families, our communities, whatever that looks like. But anyways, when we talk about leadership, one of the most valuable things I've done is get to know myself and get to know my strengths, get to know my weaknesses, create the vulnerability of having accountability partners. And when we talk about the element of leadership, I'm not going to attract anybody around me, or I shouldn't say attract. I'm not going to be able to retain or keep anybody around me who is a better leader than I am. So meaning on my team, working with me, working for me. I'm going to frustrate them. I'm going to frustrate who they are. And so my personal lid, I believe my personal leadership lid will really determine the type of team I can pull in around me. And as we talk about vulnerability, and as we talk about the willingness to be open, to learn about ourselves, to go through a coaching process ourselves, when I talk about leadership to business owners, a lot of times it's kind of the fluffy stuff, meaning a lot of times you can't say, okay, this is going to do exactly this for your bottom line or exactly this for your cash flow. And I totally understand that. However, when we look at elements like vision or elements like rallying your team around you, being able to connect with somebody, to sit down, to have the emotional intelligence to listen, that's leadership. And being able to understand yourself and to work on yourself and to be able to raise your own lid, to be able to connect with other people better, to be able to communicate better, to be able to understand. Like for me, over the past few years, I've just been really now understanding the elements that I need to work on as a leader, the in-depth, the core. Hey, we're products of our environment. So there's issues that I've gone through in the past 43 years that have determined my perspective and where I sit and what that looks like. So understanding that and having patience with myself, patience with other people. However, I think it boils down to that personal leadership lid and your willingness to be vulnerable, to learn, and also to invest in your environment around you.
You said something interesting, and maybe I misheard it. Are you saying you can't hire better leaders to work under you?
No, not that you can't hire better leaders to work under you. If you hire, and this is what I found. So if I'm a business leader and I hire a better leader, so John Maxwell uses a scale of 1 to 10. And so say I'm a 7 on that scale of 1 to 10. Everybody's got different skills, abilities, and talents. If I hire an 8 or a 9 and I'm not doing something actively to become a better leader to help them connect, I'm going to lose them. They're going to get frustrated with me eventually, and you will lose them. So it's not that you can't hire or necessarily attract It's that if you're not doing something then actively to make sure that you're growing your lid and you're doing something to maintain that leader, because that 8 or 9 leader probably was stretching and wanting more, stretching and wanting more. And if they feel like they're being held back because you're not willing to stretch and grow and help them connect within your organization, you will lose them. Personal opinion and perspective. I've seen it happen.
Can you just let them run?
What will happen, I'm going to say no, and fight me on this if you want to. I'm going to say no because what will happen is a lot of times that lower level leader, unless they figure out how to not be intimidated and be able to disconnect and let that higher level leader run and lead the team themselves, then it's going to be really difficult. Now, I would say I could agree with you if you were a business owner and you were able to just put yourself out of the business and let that leader run the business around the team. Yes, I could get on board with that. But if that leader wants to also sit on as the head leader on the team, whether the owner, visionary, I personally don't think you're going to retain that higher leader for as long as you would like to. They would get frustrated.
No, and I think it's the distinction there, right? To me, it's like, hey, if I'm going to get somebody great, I'm going to step back.
Okay. Yes.
I'll let them kind of run and I'll support their run and I'll just be like, okay, I'm all right with that.
I agree with that. I'm there with you.
Anything else from Maxwell that is helpful?
So within Maxwell, around talking about the vulnerability, when you look at John Maxwell and everything that he's done, I've talked about the vulnerability aspect, but I think one of the things that us as leaders that we don't pay enough attention to, and within the Maxwell work, I think this does a really good job at helping leaders work through this, is our ability to communicate and connect with the people around us. And I think we maybe kind of make that seem a little easier than it actually is. So communicating isn't just us talking. If I'm really trying to communicate with you right now, Rocky, and I'm trying my best to do this, but sometimes it's hard, is when you're talking to me, I'm trying to really listen to understand what you're saying and not formulate my response in return while you're talking. Does that make sense? So
it makes total sense. A lot of people can't do that.
Yes, it's very difficult. And so one of the things I've really tried to work on myself within the Maximo program, but then also convey to leaders, is that to be a truly good leader, you have to be willing to communicate really well with the people around you. And communicating really well with the people around you comes with a different few elements. First, you got to put yourself on the back burner. So like our conversation here, I don't want it to be it's not about me. It's about us. It's about us trying to invest in the business leaders that are listening to your podcast. And so for me to sit around or talk to somebody on my team or a client talking to somebody on their team, the ability to communicate is putting their needs before your own, listening before speaking, asking more questions than making more statements, being able to take constructive criticism, but also give constructive criticism in a positive manner, and then leave those conversations with that team member that you're talking to feeling better than when they left you. I feel like when we interact with people, I feel that you're either gonna be an energy giver or an energy taker. We transfer energy. You're either gonna be an energy giver or an energy taker. So that's another element I think that Maxwell does really well at, and I'm not the most patient person, Rocky, and I'm not the most. I'm a bootstrap. Pull your bootstraps up, suck it up type of guy. And I've really had to work hard at just stepping back, being patient, listening to understand, and being there through that support process because I need that myself. And so that's been big for me.
I'm not patient either. I think most business owners aren't. I think it's one of our traits.
Probably.
We all want it done yesterday. It's just life, but you also have to realize that if your people were that good, they'd be competing against you instead of working for you. So just understand that that's the nature of the beast. And you kind of have to work with that. For those of you who want the softer side, we actually talk about the softer side on the other podcast, Richer Soul, that we do this week. Like what's releasing now, just as we're recording this, is how to disagree respectfully and that type of conversation. So we do all the soft side over there. What I have found is when you're drowning in the finances, you don't want to hear that. But once your finances start to work out, all of a sudden you're like, oh, let's start working on these other things. So we create that balance back and forth. Speaking of balance, I know a lot of people freak out over the concept of being profit focused. But in the reality, you like to work with kingdom focused business owners. And I always tell people, look, if you've got a change you want to make in the world, whether it be religious grounds, whether it be making an impact somewhere in the world, whatever it is, if you don't have profit, you can't make impact, because it is only from the excess that you're going to be able to do that. And the more your excess, the bigger the impact you can make. So I just, out of curiosity, what does it mean to you to be a kingdom focused business?
Good question. So a lot of my clients they would label themselves as a kingdom focused business. And what that would mean in their eyes, and then what that would mean in my eyes as well, is what they're doing is taking their creation of wealth, creation of business, creation of opportunity, and they're doing that for a direct impact to the kingdom of God in whatever shape or form that looks like. So for some of them, it has to do with immediately, it has to do with the specific families that are working within that business. So how are they helping the specific families within that business? Some of them, it's more a larger community focus. So I have some who then invest into different, I don't know what, health type of initiatives. So I work with a lot of plain community business owners, and some of them will do like special needs or health initiatives. And then these have a ministry element to them. So meaning not only is it just a health or a special needs focus, but there's the biblical aspect. There's the salvation message. There's an underlying kingdom focused drive behind what they're supporting. So they pair that work up with a direct influence on the impact it would have for the kingdom. Also, you can come back to, for them, and you talked about, profit first. So profit, you can't have people without profits, but you got to have profit for your people. And so there's, you got to have both. And I think sometimes we can get focused on one too much over the other. And you can focus on, if you're solely focused on people and nurturing your people and giving your people, say, third, fourth, fifth chances, whatever that looks like in your team, what is that doing for the profit side? How is that affecting the business? And so you have to have both. And that simple answer to the kingdom focus is whatever God lays on that business owner's heart on how it's going to support the kingdom, that's what they do with the business, or some of the business profits is they drive it to that area.
And I've had a lot of clients who do that. And what we do, we actually use the profit account to build up the money, because when the money's sitting there, it's easy to stroke a check.
Oh, yeah.
And so they use a portion of their profit account where they dedicate a certain portion of it automatically to doing it. And then they can take it out on a quarterly basis or however they do it. And it just becomes a natural part of their business. And it makes it very, very easy for them to give and to not even feel the struggle of giving. Like, oh, I do, can we do it? Do I have enough? It's just like, hey, we put the money aside. It's ready. Let's go. We're going to do our mission. And it works out wonderfully for them.
Have you ever read, I'm looking at my shelf, Business Not by the Book by David Green, the CEO of Hobby Lobby?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Called Business Not by the Book by David Green, CEO of Hobby Lobby. Very, very extremely good read. And that it's right up that alley of kingdom focused businesses. And how does Hobby Lobby embody that? And it's a phenomenal read for anybody whose heart is that, or whose heart is there, whose heart in that direction. Even if it's not biblical focused, even with people whose hearts are they want to give, they want to support a foundation, they want to support something bigger than just the business. The Leadership by the Book, or Leadership Not by the Book by David Green, is a phenomenal read.
I will have to add that to my never-ending stack of books. It's always another. Drives me crazy.
There is.
But we get there little by little. If people would like to learn more about you, your services, where can they find you?
My landing page, EOS landing page, Derek, EOS Worldwide / Derek Newcomer. I have a LinkedIn page. If you just type in Derek Newcomer on LinkedIn, and then or EOS Derek Newcomer, EOS Worldwide on LinkedIn. Those are my two main pages where people can reach out and get in touch with me.
And we will put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks you, Rocky. This has been great. Appreciate the conversation.
Do you have an operating system for your business, or is it you? Meaning you have to do everything and be involved in everything and end up being the bottleneck that prevents growth and makes you run around and get tired. Why not do what we talked about? Why not create a business that's fun and easy, one that makes lots of money and that scales easily and doesn't have you constantly involved in every part of it? You have simple meetings, thumbs up, thumbs down. If it's a thumbs down, what are you going to do to fix it? And you let them take control and do it. Right people, right seats, more money in the bank. Because the reality is you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. Put in a system like EOS or another one that you love. Let's remember, we focus on the bottom line. Thanks for listening to The Profit Answer Man, where we believe more revenue doesn't mean more profit. And the bottom line is what really matters. If you're ready to stop living check to check, take control of your cash flow, and finally get paid what you're worth, we should talk. We work with 7- and 8-figure businesses and well-funded startups. If you're a smaller business, check out the Profit Blueprint program. It's a do-it-yourself solution that also can come with my direct guidance in the same level we give our one-on-one clients. When you're ready for results, book a discovery call. There's a link in the show notes or at profitcomesfirst.com. You'll be speaking and working directly with me. In the meantime, grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint at profitcomesfirst.com. It's the next step to turning your business into a consistent cash flow generating machine. If you'd like to dig more into leading yourself, your company, and building the ultimate life, listen to my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we cover these topics in great depth. There's a link in the show notes. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.